welcome to Golden Craft.
Yeah. It's that time again. Welcome back. Bowling Craft Cast. We're
Welcome
here.
back, ladies and gentlemen.
We're here on a special episode. Well, technically on an episode where we're covering something new, something that's like not really like a franchise. This is its own thing, and we think it's pretty cool because it's not just covering like a TV series, but also culinary arts. You know.
Yeah, it's a great new show, and as like a lot of people know that have been listening to the podcast, like I'm starting to learn to cook a lot more, and I've been joining these Facebook groups. And shout out to the Chef Favreau posting page because they're the ones who like were talking about this months before the release, and I got so excited when it came out. And I literally just jammed through it as soon as it came out. Like I literally watched it all. So this one's out for you. And speaking of our podcast, we talk about entertainment and craft beer. And today we got some delicious craft beers that we're going to be talking about for you foodies and craft beer people, as well as this amazing show that I know a lot of people in the culinary arts appreciated. And we just want to get down to the brass tacks. What we do on this podcast is we basically just talk about anything entertaining, whether it be TV shows, streaming series, movies, music, video games, and we always pair it with a delicious beer. So today we have some very special beers, but even a more special show that already got renewed. Holler season 2, it already got renewed, and a lot of dope actors in this series and a lot of dope situations and just real nitty gritty of the culinary world, which I like.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating considering that they actually um, do actual cooking in the show, you know? And it's actually supervised none other than Matty Matheson, who's actually in the
Yes.
show, you know? So it's cool to have him as like not just like an actor in the show, but also like executive producer. He's an EP on it, and just over being a supervisor on like uh what the characters are cooking up here and there. So it's pretty cool. It's a pretty unique take on like a craft that's like never before like been like more authentic than ever before. Really, I mean, there's some things that were authentic. I think Chef, like the movie Chef, with Favreau, I think that was like the closest thing I want to say. But now we got a TV series, so it's like super cool. So you
Yeah,
wanna?
dude. Super sick. I mean, I if you've ever seen Vice, you know Maddie Madison, he's really dope and he takes it to another level. He's just an all-around good dude. He's got a great vibe. You'll see what I'm talking about later, people, but it features a lot of dope actors like we said. We got Oliver Platt in there who plays Uncle Jimmy. And he's been in a lot of sweet movies. He's been in Bicentennial Man, 2012, Three Musketeers, Lake Placid, just a bunch of different stuff. Modern Family as well. Um,
It's like
what
whatever.
else?
It's like whatever type of titles.
Fargo. He's been in Fargo, the TV series. He's
Oh
been in the
yeah.
movie Chef. The movie Chef.
Ah.
The Jeff Favreau posting page. You know this movie because that's what the whole freaking page is about. It's about the movie Chef. And he played Ramsey Michael, the well, I guess at the end he does actually become a protagonist because he's rooting for the chef's new work, but he is one of the hardest critics in that world. So it's really dope to see him. I bet you that's why they gave him the gig because they saw him as a writer and they were like, okay,
Yeah.
he's doing a good job. He takes it seriously. So we also got John Bernthal, which you guys know him from Walking Dead and a bunch of other stuff. The Punisher. Damn, he's all over the place, but he plays a very important role, which is the older brother. And We also get some new faces. Some Chris Witaski, which is like the brother-in-law. We got
Yeah, the guy
Edward Lee Gibson. I don't think I've ever seen him before. Richard Esteras, Lisa Colon Zayas. So they play some pretty dope characters. Ayo Edebiri. I don't know if I got that. Lionel Boyce, I believe, as Marcus. Ayo is Sydney, actually. She's a really important character. And Richard Ritchie is played by Ebon Moss.
swear if he, I swear if he calls me Ricky one more time,
If he
just
calls me
fucking
Rick,
it was
no,
Ricky.
it was Richie.
Yeah, it was Ricky.
Yeah.
It's like if he
And
calls
then
me Ricky, I'm gonna lose
Carmi
it.
is played by none other than Jeremy Allen White. We've seen him in Shameless.
Yep,
We've seen him in some other things.
the main character on this. He's leading the
Eh,
show. Good to see him branching out.
Yeah, definitely sweet. It's a lot of people that have watched Shameless are like, yeah, he got his own show. That's awesome. He deserves his own spotlight. So it's cool that this show is really bringing it home for him. And this character Carmi, he's a very uh down to earth but up in the air kind of guy. It seems like.
Yeah.
But I mean, before we get into more detail, you know what we do here best, people. And let's drink some craft beers. What do we got, Serge?
So I got Anderson Valley's Summer Solstice. I don't even know how to say
This
that word.
is so funny. Summer solstice.
Solstice.
Dude, you're
Solstice.
gonna trip out.
Why?
I got Anderson Valley too.
Yay. I was hoping I God damn it. I was hoping you got like the same brewery. This is a different flavor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
obviously this one's dope because there's an actual bear on it.
Yeah,
Hence,
I looked at that and I was like, oh, I don't want a goose. I'm like, I want something.
Yeah.
It's not a
I
goose.
was actually gonna get the summer solstice too.
Yeah.
That's funny. But then I was like, you know what? Blood orange ale. That sounds good. That's a culinary kind of move, So I went for that
Yes.
one. It's a goes. So let's see how it
Yeah.
goes.
Wait, do me a favor and post with the beer. It's gonna be a screenshot. Look like I'm doing like a family portrait like. Alright, that's enough.
All right, got it.
Sorry,
Sweet.
that was a moment.
Got the screenshot, people. All right, so let's give this a crack.
You know what?
Ooh, that was crispy.
Let me get a glass. Got it.
Start chugging away at this. All right, let's get a little tester. As you guys know, if you listened to the last podcast, I'm on a little bit of medication right now, so I can't do like the full thing, but it was $2. The beer was $2. It was like $1.29 or something like that. So I bought the single pack. Well, I guess it's not a pack, but the single, $2. What are you gonna do? Great price point,
Got a
okay, for
singles.
this delicious blood orange ale.
I was thinking of
You
getting
got yours,
singles.
Ford?
I got mine in the pack. I was thinking of doing singles, but I was like, you know what? I don't think I want more than like two.
I'm glad we went for the same company though. So this is
Yeah.
Anderson's Valley Brewing Company. Let me look it up real quick.
Real kick.
Real quick.
Give it a real kick. Well, so far this is how it's pretty dark.
All right. Brewed in Mendocino County. All right. Cheers, Letty.
Cheers from afar. Eh.
Cheers to the craft
Yeah, we should have a clink. Clink.
and to the chefs out there.
Whoa. Got a good amount of head. Looks pretty dark.
There's no head
Whoa.
on here, sir. This
Whoa.
is Saison.
Super
It's a
dark.
goes. I mean, what did I expect?
Super dark hazel color. It's a little. I want to say amber, but I think it's like the background.
Honestly, this one is it's light. It's got a nice body, but it also has a reddish tone to it.
Yeah.
So let's see how that goes.
I drank one before. Sorry, I drank one before the show, so kind of got a little preview. Honestly,
Very.
this one
Yeah. What do you
tastes
got?
like fruity pebbles.
Oh man, I should have gone with that one.
Yeah, you know how you always say like, "Oh, this tastes like fruity pebbles." I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about, but this one actually does taste like fruity pebbles.
Damn it! I need to get that one.
Yeah, so you're getting like an orange taste on it.
This one, yeah.
Very like I want to say wit.
Do you want to
What
read
is it?
the side of it so we know what we're dealing with here?
Yeah, I read the side. Wait, if I can read the side. So summer. I forgot what it says. Solstice,
Solstice.
solstice. I don't know how to read. Our summer solstice is unique and well balanced with the notes of vanilla, caramel, cream, and coffee. This beer pairs perfectly with bathing suits and weekend camping trips, backyard barbecues, and all the best memories of summertime. Enjoy. So
Wow.
I could see the
Yeah, that one
vanilla,
looks dope.
but it tastes. I don't know why, but it tastes like a little bit of orange.
Mine is a blood orange. It's a 4.2.
Little
It's
bit.
tart. I'd say, dude, it's really sour. It's usually not my way to go. It says glassware, stange,
Oops.
or pint glass. What's stange? Let's see what a stange is.
Doctor Strange.
Stange. Oh, like a tall glass, I believe. Yeah, a tall pint glass. I had one of those, damn it. I put it in one of these. Oops. You really get the nose on it. You could smell that orange. But like I said, it's really acidic, really sour. Kind of takes away from, well, I mean, I wouldn't say takes away, but definitely is not an ale, is not,
Yeah.
you're not going to get, just because it says blood orange, you're not going to get like a shock top kind of nice, tuck you in at night
Yeah.
aftertaste. It's like a shocker. It's like a,
Uh.
it's like a, I want to say like a warhead almost. Like it's that sour. Um, yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna do all this, but we'll see. All
Yeah.
right. Well, without further ado, people, the bear. Let's talk about some top scenes in the show that we really liked. I mean, usually we would do top two for this, but there was a lot of good moments in the show. I feel like that we need to just cover some points and maybe just debate a little bit on some thoughts. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Pretty much. So should we go a little bit into like the characters themselves and basically the actors that portray them?
Well, I think before we go into the like points that we want to talk about, maybe we just talk about like the overall premise. Because I mean, let's just put it out there, people. Spoiler alert! Like we're gonna talk about all season one. We're gonna get in there, So if you haven't seen the show, you might want to watch it before we start getting in right now. All right.
Okay.
Now that we
This.
got that out of the way,
Oh wait. Damn it! I lost it.
cheers.
Okay. So basically, I think my IMDb got a hiccup because you know how like they have like the names of the cast and then it has like the pictures.
Yeah,
So basically, I was looking at Jeremy Allen White, and it was a picture of a completely different white guy, and I was just like, "Oh fuck!" And I was gonna show it to you, but I think it just like kind of like, never mind.
yeah. It
But
corrected itself.
it corrected itself.
This is what it
Weird.
says on IMDb. Carmen Rosado, a brilliant young chef from the fine dining world, is forced to return home to run his family's sandwich shop, the original beef of Chicagoland. After a heartbreaking death in his family, his older brother, a world away from what he's used to, Carmen must balance the soul-crushing reality of trading in Michelin-star restaurants for the small business's kitchen filled with strong-willed, recalcitrant, that's a big word, staff and strained familiar relationships, all while grappling with impact of his brother's suicide.
Huh.
That word, recalcitrant, having an obstinately uncooperative attitude toward authority or discipline, basically being an asshole. Okay, that's what it is. He's got an asshole staff that kind of they're kind of anarchy. They're kind of like pirates of the kitchen kind of vibe until he goes in there and kind of tries to move them in the direction of a fine dining experience. All right. So now that we got the storyline out of the way, let's talk about some sweet points or some sweet moments in it.
All
I
right.
mean, go ahead.
Well, I want to say like the pilot, just like my impression of the pilot, you kind of get that right away that something has happened with his character, and he has to deal with like owning the restaurant, managing the restaurant, and you could tell that he doesn't quite know what he's doing. But what he does best is like the craft of it. So it's basically like if you were to like make a movie, he knows how to make the movie, but he just doesn't know how to be a producer. He doesn't know how to like manage this shit. So right away you kind of get that, and also you get like a new character, or I guess you get like Sydney, like hired right there and then. Say like, oh, okay, you're hired right there and then. It's just like
Mm-hmm.
kind of fast and easy, and he's kind of see like, oh, like uh again, like you say, he's kind of the guy that's like up in the air, and he'll just accept anyone really at this point. He
I
said
feel
like,
like it
okay,
kind
this
of
guy's
got
nice.
him in the spot where it was just like he knew he needed the help, and this girl also knew about him. Sydney, of course, as we were talking about,
Yeah,
like knew of him and his take in the culinary world. And when she found out he was working back there, she kind of like leapt for the job, brought a resume, and kind of just made herself known there, made herself prevalent. Very strong-willed character, but it seems really fast and easy in the beginning how she got hired, but later on you actually find out he did call references and stuff like that to make sure she would be able to work and handle the kitchen.
yeah,
You know,
yeah. I guess that was the deception of like that first episode, but uh, I mean, I guess that was a pretty good call, just having to hire Sydney right there. But I mean, besides Sydney, he also has like like uh, a bunch of people working for him, and all these people were already like working there before, like what happened to his brother, and they kind of seemed like they knew each other, like just based on like the neighborhood, or just like being there in the hood. And you get like very like older people that are just like so stubborn that they don't want to change methods, and you're just like, oh, what is this? And you kind of get that like in the second or third episode, where um they're trying to like set up like a new system for all the chefs, and um they're pretty much not really on board on it, and you can kind of see why, and they're just like, oh, these aprons look fucking stupid, and they go as far as just like criticize like all the new things, because they don't like change, like the older you get,
they're
like
really stuck in their ways.
they're just like resistant
Cousin,
to that.
Richie's character kept telling Carmi, make the spaghetti. You got to make the spaghetti. That's what people love, blah blah blah. He's like, it doesn't make sense on this menu, having
Yeah,
spaghetti. People don't, you know. But
yeah, he was
then
so
if you
resistant to it.
realize,
Yeah.
going back to the last episode, if he would have done the spaghetti, he would have found it a lot earlier.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? But, it was almost like that stubbornness within Carmi himself. That was also like, I don't want to do things the way they're used to doing it. I want to do them better. I want to do them good.
Yeah.
So because of that, almost like the stubbornness of wanting the fine dining experience for everybody, he almost, well, I mean, he did miss out on, what we end up finding later on. Um, but yeah, definitely, like I said, just that pirate kind of staff, but also really helpful. Like, I feel like once he starts showing that he can focus on other things and stops trying to do everything himself, I think
Hmm.
around episode 3 is when he gives Sydney kind of the sous chef role, I believe.
Yeah. It's the brigade episode.
Yeah, the brigade episode where basically he makes her in charge and like tells her like, okay, you ready
Yeah.
to take this on, right? Well, just throws her right in the water and she starts to swim, and we see the staff's reaction to that, especially the character. what's her name?
Tina.
Tina. Yes,
Yeah.
Tina. Tina is like that conflict between Sydney and Tina is like I feel something that people really have to deal with in the kitchen,
Yeah.
especially like younger people. Like if you have a young face, it just does not work for you sometimes. You know what I'm saying? And then you have someone that's like been in the business for years, you know, which is Tina. She's what she's used to.
Yeah.
And then Abraham, we also have him, and he says that in Somalia he was the top grill master. You know, in Somalia, she's
I,
like, shut up, yo, fool. You know, like just telling him
I
off.
like his reaction
And
because when they said like, "Oh, we're gonna make a brigade," and he's like, "Oh, I've been in a brigade once. We lost many men."
mhm.
So you kind of have a sense like he's an old war hero as well, and
He's a
it's like,
war hero, yeah.
and when you bring like brigade into the conversation, that's what he thinks of
He would kind
himself.
of stepped up to the plate in that aspect, like thinking about it like an army,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, that's sort of
But I
like the
mean,
discipline. That's what they're going for.
you,
It's a discipline.
yeah, and you could kind of see, you know, as an army, you know, their new uniforms, their new soldier uniforms are that blue apron that they're all wearing, you know. And then we see that Tina doesn't want to wear the apron, so like just at the beginning, she's already like kind of butting heads with the change
Yeah,
and having to change,
yeah.
you
She's
know.
like, oh, this looks fucking stupid. And then I think like in the later episodes, she starts to wear the apron. So it's like sort of she's slowly
She's like
coming to
accepting it.
acceptance. Yeah, slowly coming to acceptance in that sense, and having not only acceptance but also like respect for it, and also
Yeah.
respecting Cindy at the same time. So it's not like a fast change. Like, yeah, they will go ahead. They butt heads, but slowly come to realize, like, yeah, like, I think for the best. I think we should like all work with each other, because they're in the same boat initially. So it's like, yeah, might as well.
I think
But
the most important part was exactly the fact that, you know, like every single person was called chef, even the dishwashers. You know, you have
yeah,
Richard Esteras, Manny, the dishwasher, and the other dude, Angel, you know,
definitely.
they're in the back washing dishes, but they're even considered chefs. And when they call the attention of all the other chefs, he's like, well, you have the floor now. You better make it good, you know? And he's like, please take these stickers off before you throw them in the dishwasher or dishes because it gets really hard to take off, you know?
Yeah,
So like it's just like little things like that that actually do help kitchen run smoothly. You know, you don't think about those aspects when you're getting food on the other side. You know what
yeah,
I'm saying? You don't think about those little things that people have to deal with that, you know, restaurant workers and chefs have to deal with. So, you know, cheers to that. I'm glad they're actually putting real stuff in there that people could, you know, consider. It's like, don't be an asshole. If this was your job, would you like people doing this all the time to you or
yeah,
what have you, you know?
yeah.
Like when they said fuck brunch, you know, that moment where they're like Sydney and Carmi are right there. They said, oh man, fuck brunch. They're like, yeah, fuck brunch. And it's like I saw
It's
people in the Favreau posting page and also in the Culinary Gangsters page. Shout out to Culinary Gangsters. They were like, I felt like everybody felt there. Someone put like, if you work in the food industry, everybody felt that statement. Like fuck brunch. You know what I'm saying?
yeah. Which I was thinking about that line. It was just like, oh wow, is brunch really that bad for like the other side of cooking it? Being like the people behind it. I mean, it's cool as a customer, but then it's like, oh, it's a completely different menu when it comes to like you
I
know
mean, not only
the
that, but
chefs.
it's like unlimited mimosas. People can get it out of hand.
Yeah,
You know, you basically have a dinner rush, but in the morning.
yeah,
So
exactly.
it's
So
like
you're also
everyone goes
having
home all tired and then wakes up and has to do basically like the end of the day shift at the beginning of the day. So I get that.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's a different menu. It's like in between the morning and then the lunch, and it's just, I mean, yeah, between the morning and the lunch. That's the point. And yeah, so it's just like it just seems like extra. So it's just like really, like just stick to three, not fucking four. What we're gonna do
Yeah.
dinner next? No, that's
Yeah.
what it's like.
So, I mean, there was a lot of dope parts, but I think one of the underlying things that's most important is the fact that, you know, the conversation that Uncle Jimmy has with Carmi and says, hey man, your brother's in debt to me $300,000. and you could tell that he's kind of in the underworld, in the underboss world, or whatever he
Yeah, you
does.
don't want to. Yeah, they're trying not to say anything about that.
They're not really saying
They're
anything
not saying
about it
anything.
specifically, but at the same time, I feel like that uncle has a lot of secrets. You know, he has a lot of things under in his brain and like what he knows about having to do with his family and everything that I feel like he's not telling Carmi too.
Yeah,
You know, but he did want to let him know, hey man, there's a debt, and I want to collect. You know, so what does he start doing? And one of the big plot points of season one is he starts pimping him out basically, and like having
yeah.
him do, like his little kid's birthday party with the
That's
ecto cool. He does an ecto cooler,
yeah.
and
I think that's
basically
yeah. That's
like,
one of my favorite episodes because it was just
yeah,
like I don't know. I just like the whole dynamic between like Richie and Carmi and shit. So like in the beginning, it's just like a whole different hassle, like of them having to deal with each other. Like
yeah,
what are you doing with the hot dog? It's like kids love hot dogs. It's like yeah, no shit, dumbass. That's what we're fucking giving them, cooking them hot dogs. But it's also
you know
like
what's
he's
funny?
just being extra, like adding more stuff to it. It's just like
Exactly, but you know what's funny is like, oh yeah, he's like, we're not fucking taking the hot dog, and then they wrestle the hot dog. Is it's okay, I'll just go get the backup one, and he goes and gets the other one from the. But then this is what's funny to me. So he gets on this whole thing about, oh yeah, kids like hot dogs, right?
right.
But then later on, where he goes, hey, did you bring the ketchup? And he goes, no, what psychopath would put ketchup on their hot dog? And he's like, a child, Richie. A
A
child
child.
put ketchup on his hot dog. Like he wants to bring the air hot dog, but he forgets to bring the ketchup for the kids. I don't
Yeah.
know.
He's a
It's just a funny contrast.
yeah. He's a different dude with a different type of mentality, and he's just like I don't know. He doesn't think normally like other people, and I think it goes with like with him having to take like medications for that, which what was it, Xanax that they pretty much like spiked into the freaking drinks.
Oh my
That
gosh.
shit was funny.
I was surprised at the reaction of Jimmy afterward. He's like,
Yeah, after Jimmy says
actually,
like, "Hey, you're not gonna like
I'm
this,"
into it.
yeah, and then he looks and he's just like, "You know what? I'm into it." It's quiet.
And then when they he's like, all right, you successfully knocked off 1,000 or like $2,000 from your thing. And then he's like, you want to see something gross? And then he goes out back and he shows him like his brother-in-law laid out because he drank the ecto cooler.
Oh god. Yeah, that shit was
I
funny.
noticed during that part too, there was an important part between Jimmy and Richie where they like both knew about the underworld stuff. Like they were in the same world kind of deal.
Yeah.
And you kind of get that vibe that Richie, he kind of knows the underworld because he was out back selling coke,
Mhm.
to a bunch of people,
Yeah.
or to
Yeah.
Nico or whatever.
Yeah, you kind of get a sense he's sort of like a scumbag, like Nico and stuff. So it's just like everyone knows each other, and everyone was just like sort of connected in that circle, in that fucking Chicago circle. But
Not only that,
it's
but I
yeah,
really go ahead.
yeah. It's just like I don't know. It's just like I didn't really expect that out of this show because it was just like it's about like a chef, but also it's just coming to terms with like family and then the family. So it's like all together it's just like sort of like what do you call it? Um fuck, I lost my train of thoughts, but I don't know. There was just something connected that I was just like realizing about that. But yeah, yeah.
I
Go
mean, I
ahead.
think it's interesting for me, like when I look at the characters, I think it's really cool that they're kind of showing these people, while they're at the job and then while they're out of the job.
Yeah,
And it's like they're almost like still living cooking, like even
yeah,
when they go home, they're still about cooking.
yeah,
And
yeah,
even some of them don't cook at all, like Carmi keeps his jeans in the freaking stove, you know?
yeah,
I noticed that in the beginning in the pilot, he had his jeans in the stove. That was one of the places that he was using to store his stuff.
yeah,
And it just goes to show that he doesn't cook when he's at home. He cooks in the kitchen, like he spends basically all his days like in the kitchen. So, I mean, you just see from episode 1 just how hard of a worker he is. I mean, Tina, you kind of see her background of her being like almost like an only mother with a son that's kind of like a fuck up, getting in trouble at school. And then you see Sydney's background of her being in debt after starting like a venture and basically not being able to keep up with it and putting herself in a shitload of debt.
Yeah.
And then you also see, Maddie Matheson's background is kind of just like jack of all trades kind of dude that just is along for the ride, but he's a good worker, and there's a lot of good moments with him. This is one of my favorite moments right here with Maddie Matheson. Let's go ahead and hit the clip.
Serious, man. I'm being serious. What might you bring to the beef as a new employee?
I got heart.
What's heart?
I'm nervous, man. I got heart.
You're gonna need brain. Now, do you have any special skills or abilities aside from being a fucking stroke?
Well, A, I'm not a fucking stroke. And B, I'm really good on the keyboard.
No, A, you are. And B, no, you're not.
Well, A, yes, I am. And B, I joined a jazz fusion class, so in your face.
A, I've heard you fucking play, and you're fucking terrible. And C, it's a fucking restaurant. Why do I give a fuck that you play the keyboard?
I'm a hard worker. I'm a nice guy. I got a great vibe.
Fuck your vibe.
Don't ever fuck my vibe.
I swear
I
to God,
love
will
that,
fuck
dude.
anything
I
wanna
love
fuck.
that segment.
You are not
I just
being
thought
nice.
like,
You will not fuck me.
I thought that exchange was so good.
Yeah.
I don't know how many takes it took to get that, but he nailed it, dude.
Yeah, I feel like they got like the right take on it. I feel like they kind of improvise it a little bit from
He's good, dude.
script,
He's a good
yeah.
actor. Like he's
he's
used to
really
being like he's got his chops out in front of the camera, but
Yeah.
you could tell he's got a future in acting for sure, bro.
Yeah, he's got a good coach, I guess. Um,
It's crazy that he's
But-
one of the producers in it though, but yeah.
but yeah, also like just Richie himself is just an interesting character, you know. My whole thought of like when I was looking at him, I was just like, you know what? He looks like Bert Kreischer if he were fucking skinny. This whole time, if you look at him, like it just looks like okay, if Bert Kreischer were like that fucking skinny.
I guess I kind of see that, yeah.
Yeah, you kind of see like that bold face and just like the squinty eyes and just like the beard too. I think it's just like most of the facial features on it.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, but I mean, aside from him, he's a good actor. Yeah, I really like him. I think isn't he Canadian or something? I think it's just like
Let me see.
what?
Jerimovich. American. Known for playing the role
it's
of
American.
David Lieberman in The Punisher and Desi Harperin in The Girls. He was born in Massachusetts.
Close enough. I don't know why he thought he was
Well,
Canadian.
there you go.
I didn't know he was in The Punisher.
Yeah, neither did I. That's kind of wild.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's crazy that he brought him on board, though. But hey, that
think it was
explains
John-
it. Because
yeah.
what's his name's in it?
John
John
Bertholz.
Bernthal.
It's probably John Bertha. He's all like, "Hey, you want to take a look at my guy? He's cool. He's a good guy."
I love that episode where it's him kind of telling that story when they go to that bar,
Yeah. Oh, the Bill
and
Murray
it's like
one.
that hockey team that won or whatever.
Yeah.
And then they're going and they're like partying with them, and then they tell that whole story where he's leaving a voicemail, and then Bill Murray interrupts him,
Yeah.
and then he ends up going on that date, and the girl was just like,
Yeah, that story.
"You went to a bar at
Yeah.
6:30 in the morning,"
Doesn't get it.
and she's like, "That wasn't the point of the story," and it was just like, "Fuck!" It just showed. But that's another way of showing like how it was going for him in his life outside of work.
Yeah.
He's got a kid that his baby mama has, and he's kind of just like the shit dad.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, he's pretty much like a scumbag, and he's just like, not down on his luck. Well, he's not lucky on certain things, but he's just not like responsible, and then he's not like forward thinking about things. He just goes how it is and stuff. It's just like, oh fuck. It's like I could see how like him and Carmi are related in some sense. It's just like, it's just hard for them to take like certain responsibilities. But I think Carmi has like more of a sense of having that responsibility because the restaurant got handed to him in that sense, and then Richie is just like coming along for the ride. It's just like a recipe for disaster, if you will, which it is
Yeah, I
of
mean, you
owning
could
it.
see as
You
soon
know?
as he comes in late to work in the pilot that he didn't really give a fuck, but he's just used to being there, and he knows the people, so it's a comfortable place for him,
Yeah.
but I mean, like, it's also a comfortable place for the other character, Marcus, the
Mhm.
dude that's starting to make pastries and stuff like that, kind of getting his groove in the kitchen and finding more out of it, and like actually taking in and absorbing the information that he's getting on how to be better,
Yeah.
and it's like, I think it's like those people that really stand out in the culinary world because they're like willing to embrace change and stuff like that and
Yeah.
be, you know, put
Yeah.
themselves out of their comfort zone.
Yeah. It's
And
those
in an
guys.
artistic light, like that's what you got to do.
Yeah, it's those guys that they have the passion for it, but often, and most times, like they're usually like in the background, or they're not in the most prestigious places around, so they
Don't
start off
have the
somewhere
means
around.
to learn at that level,
Yeah,
or
so it's
like
like
to go to
really,
culinary
yeah,
school
so
like
it's
Sydney did.
yeah, it's really them having to teach themselves, but the way they envision of having like certain things, like for him, like I remember one of the episodes, he was like picturing like a certain dish that he wanted to make, and he just like was like kind of picturing. He's all like, okay, I have my methods of doing it, and sort of like um having to know what he learned before, and then just having to like put those like experiences into making something new, and then he was just like kind of like making his own thing right there and then. So
And
and
then
he even had
we
his
we
like,
can see,
yeah, he even
yeah,
had his like roommate come in and pick up certain things and help him
some
out.
swatches. I feel
Yeah,
like he's gonna come around in season 2 and help them actually design the bear. That's
yeah,
what I think he's
yeah.
gonna
That's
do.
what I think too.
Um, I feel like that part where he's trying to make the cake and he's trying to rush and do everything all at once. Well, it's because of like he was so sidetracked with what he was passionate about making that he forgot his actual duties, try to speed up the process, and
Yeah.
in that process ended up shutting down, um, which is one of my favorite episodes. Actually, that's where that clip was from with Maddie Madison. I think it's episode 6 or 7 or something like
Yeah,
that.
when the
But
toilet breaks down.
basically, he
Yeah.
blacks out the beef of Chicagoland. There's no power in it because he put on the mixer too high. Lack of resources, and like basically because the mixer he had was shitty, it ended up shorting out the circuit. Blah blah blah. They do one of the coolest things ever, and they like get those bricks and they put them together and they make a grill outside and decide to do like outside service, which I thought was freaking sick. And then
Yeah,
they
that's
just
just
make it
cool.
like cash only.
Yeah, it's also like again like how the people managing that restaurant, they're going with the flow, and then obviously they got on their feet. It was mostly like Sydney's idea. Like she was right there on the spot and said like, okay, we're taking all this shit outside and then making our own like little grill and all this whole setup right there and then. So I mean, it's always like chaotic, but in that silver lining, there's always a way to do things.
Well,
So
it's
it's
not
like
the
that
silver
thing.
lining. I feel it showed like Sydney's ingenuity. And
Yeah,
it also
which
was
is
taking
that's the silver
from
lining.
what she was used to doing before when she was doing her catering business. Like that's what she was used to. So she was kind of using that knowledge to do it. But she's a very interesting character because she comes on really strong. And then later on, there's that whole situation, and this pissed a lot of people off in the Favreau posting page,
But
was that she created that whole online system, and she couldn't take the heat, and when she couldn't take the heat, she just left the kitchen. So
yeah,
people went up in arms about that, like, how could you be on a team like that and just like leave in the moment of fucking truth, you know?
yeah. I think they're just envisioning if that were happened in like a real life scenario, and it's just like no, it's like because it's like at the most frustrating moment of like during all this chaos, and the one person that's responsible is gonna like bitch uh out of that just like last minute and just not even like worried about it and just leave it to like the people that weren't even responsible in the first place. So I think that's what I know where they're coming from. Really, I was just like in that mindset, but
I just
it's
think
weird.
one thing to really talk about too is just the not the connection, but maybe the juxtaposition, the comparing of both Richie's character and Sydney's character, because they're both strong in their own ways. You kind of see one is hard-headed in the ways of the past, one is hard-headed in the ways of the future, and they're kind of clashing for almost like a power position.
Yeah.
But they're each learning from each other, I feel, in a way. But I feel like Richie's character actually gets impressed by her when he's looking for his gun in that one episode to try to break up the fight. And Sydney actually goes out there and handles the situation herself and does it, with poise. And it kind of surprises him, like, holy shit, like she was able to do that without me, kind of deal. Which kind of in a way, like, I think shook his tree and kind of like made him realize like he's not the only one that could do that, but also just like made him realize like Sydney's also a force to be reckoned with,
Exactly.
even though she's young, like she's still a force to be reckoned with, which I think is dope for a lot of like younger people in cooking and just like in the world in general. It's like Sydney's our character, man. She's like manic, she's in like debt, she's like just like she's gone through the whole college thing and she's stepped into the world and just like she had a shit time and is like on a bunch of like antidepressants or whatever she has in her pill cabinet. You kind of see that day when she wakes up. You kind of see her living situation and you kind of see Richie's living situation. Well, not his living situation, but like the situation that he's in. And almost like the trouble that he gets into because of his rage. As we see in that episode at the end where he ends up punching, that dude that they were having the bachelor party with. So I mean that was just like that kind of just like rocked his core too, and kind of just like you see this fool just kind of get karma dealt to him in this whole season. And Carmi is there to just along for the ride, and because he does that for him, like Richard ends up giving him the letter that his brother wrote to him.
Yeah.
And basically tells him,
at first
let it rip.
Yeah. At first he was kind of hesitant about it. So I think I'm just having trouble understanding as to why he kind of upheld that. No, wait. I realize that now. I think it was because he just doesn't want him to like. I think it was for an emotional reason why he didn't like want him to let him know that there's a letter from what's his brother's name?
Well, if you remember at the end of it, Michael's his name.
Yeah.
But if you remember at the end of it, he says, I didn't want to give it to you because I felt if I gave it to you, that would truly mean that he's gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was almost a way of holding on to a piece of Michael,
Yeah. So it was for an emotional reason. Like he was just he didn't want him to like be kind of like down when all this chaos is happening and managing like the restaurant, because I think it would have gone down the same path as his brother. I think that's like the fear, because it kind of seems like Richie and him were pretty close, for as far as I know.
Yeah, they were like best buds. They were the one that had that experience at like 6 a.m. It seems like they were best friends.
You see that? Yeah, that was from that one episode. It was called Series, which he actually tells the story of. It was like a Greek myth story about, I forgot what it was exactly, but he kind of revolved it around with like the story he was telling about like that night out and stuff. But it's kind of like foretelling of him having to like know that his end was gonna come, and it was kind of going into like that brooding, dark phase he was going into. But before like before the memories, before he was like at his happiest moments, and him having to like reminisce like the part of the funnest moments he had with Richie and stuff.
Yeah.
So it was good to have like that flashback, because it just says everything about all those characters that we see in that scene. Like
one thing you do
too.
see is whenever they're ever showing Michael, like the visuals are brighter. There's
Yeah.
the sun. The sun's out. You know, I noticed
Yeah.
that towards the end too. Like towards the beginning, it's really dark gray and stuff like that. Something Rocks actually pointed out too is like towards the beginning of the season or of the it's a lot darker, more ominous, and then towards the end it starts brightening up. It starts getting like a
Yeah.
lot brighter, especially
Yeah.
when they end up finding the family recipe when he opens, you know, the envelope and says, "Make the spaghetti." You know, he had literally nothing else to make, so this was like the way to do it.
It
And
was
what
his
does he
last
come
resort.
across?
Money.
Wads of cash.
Money. It was his last
So
resort, but also like literally his last resort. You know, it was like that stash he didn't know.
I feel like that it was in full the Uncle Jimmy's loan.
Yeah.
And he was just holding on to it because he did intend to actually do a franchise, but was just waiting for the right opportunity, but it never came because he, you know, fell sick to his disease basically.
Mhm.
You know? I mean, I thought it was really well written, like from beginning to end, everything, just like the funny parts, the real parts, you know, just like little kind of slice of life of Chicago is really dope to see. Kind of gave me a little reminiscence of Sopranos, you know, with the mafioso stuff going on in the background.
Yeah.
I think it's cool because they're talking about stuff like addiction and stuff like that, but they're also like mixing in, you know, siblings that have to deal with it, not just the characters himself dealing with the addiction, but the people surrounding that person, you know, and that's important to do. So kind of similar to Reservation Dogs, in that aspect.
Yeah, it comes into trauma, and then you know all the consequences of that trauma.
Yeah, and I mean, it's almost like they hit the lottery and they have that big old family dinner and stuff like that. This is like the day after Sydney walked out. She basically quit for a couple days. Carmi said, "Hey, you could pick up your last check." And she comes back with her apron on, ready to work. And they tell her, "Hey, Sid, like, grab a can opener," just like. And Richie's the one that actually gets her in and brings her in and tells her, "Hey, grab a can opener, like, start opening these up."
Yeah.
And then right then and there, Carmi and Sydney kind of have that look of just like takeout window on the side, already planning out like what the restaurant's going to be called, what it's going to be, and then they have the name of it.
Yeah, this is right
the
after.
bear.
Yeah, this is right after they actually, that episode where she like walks out of the restaurant, and I guess they had that big fight, really, or that sense of like, you know, there's some words that have been said, and she's not really happy about it, and then having her to come back, say like, you know what, let's just gonna come back, and then they do have that nod, and it's like, okay, things are actually like much brighter now. You know, so again, it's like that. It's it's pretty much the plot, really, and then just when the plot really hits right, it's just like, okay, well, this character is going through this, and now she decides to come back to this, and then this character discovers something, and you know, at the moment they're just like having to come together and say like, okay, we can make up, you know. But there's between like Carmi and her, there is a lot of similarities. Again, like we said, they do have depth, and they dealt with shit that they didn't pretty much work out for them, and you know they were on their way to being pretty prestigious like chefs. I mean, you see that Carmi already was like right there being prestigious, and then something happened that the pressure was too much for him or whatnot, that he wasn't good enough, and then Cindy's pretty much coming out of the school and with all this debt, and again, I think there's that sense that she doesn't feel well enough, but she's willing to work like, you know, from the bottom, coming from a restaurant where she actually grew up, like, you know, going to, or you know, eating once in a while, and saying like, you know, I have the passion for it, but I also have this love for this restaurant, and I'm willing to
Yeah.
put my effort and investment to, you know, do the best that I can.
I mean, not only that, but the leadership aspect of her taking the reins, kind of, and Carmi trusting her.
Yeah.
You know, with that, and she does actually turn out some good stuff, but you know, in some parts, the pressure was too much for her, and she left the the playing field, which I feel like a lot of people griped about, because she left him halfway. It's like, if you're on a team, man, you can't like leave halfway. That's some
Yeah,
bullshit,
it is
And I
bullshit.
felt like a lot of people that work in the kitchen felt that, when she left, like, dude, we're man down, of our army, so you never know. And then like there's also
Uh,
like that stubbornness of Sydney's character when she ended up dropping um all that
I,
what was that?
it
Like that
was
broth?
yeah, it was broth. I want to say that's one of my top moments there too. Um, because it's also like a moment where she's pretty much had enough, and she doesn't want like any help, and she could do it all herself. And then even you have like what's his face even offering to help, and he's like a nice guy. He was just being like the helpful guy that if you need a hand, just like holler at me. And like as soon as like she drops all that shit, he doesn't say like I told you so. He goes there and he helps her out. So it's also like a uh sort of like a reveal. Yeah, it's like a reveal to the character herself. Like, yeah, she could be as stubborn as like Carmi or all the level-headed people there, but also you gotta admit when you need help. You know.
Yeah. That was one of the big takeaways I feel of the show is don't be afraid to ask for help. I
Yeah.
think that's one of the big themes of the Bears. Don't be afraid to ask for help,
Yeah. Exactly.
because had Michael asked for help, who knows what situation they would have been in, but it's like that conversation where they have outside before the fight breaks out at the bachelor party. He's like, you know what an asshole, such an asshole. He's like, well, dude, I'm right here. Like, why would you say that? And he's like, no, dude, not you. Like your brother. Like, look what he left us. Like, this is a disgrace.
Yeah.
He's like,
Went
well,
too far on
and then
that
he
one.
asks him, well, I mean, who knew who he was using? He's like, dude, who didn't? But that's how out of touch Carmi was from being around his family, being around his brother, because he was doing his 5-star cuisine stuff,
Yeah.
and he was basically out of the loop. And Richie was kind of there and told him, like, dude, like, he was in bad shape, but I thought he would pull himself out because he's charismatic. He's a charismatic guy. I thought he would get out of it, you know? So I mean, it just showed like the hope that he had for him to get out of his addiction, and that still didn't end up. Hope doesn't help, you know?
Yeah. It
But
wasn't, yeah, it wasn't enough for them. They just felt like they were in a rut, and it kind of seems like when you're really deep into it, like you just feel like stuck and stuff. And I feel like that's the journey of like Carmi, because he
yeah,
feels
and
like he's stuck. You know.
I also feel like there's regret in Richie because he felt like maybe it was his fault, like he could have done something about it to help his
Yeah.
friend
Or he felt
and
like it
didn't,
wasn't enough.
or
Yeah, he felt
or
like it wasn't.
contributed to it. Because I mean, they do talk about selling blow behind the beef, during COVID. He's like,
Yeah.
dude, how do you think we got through COVID? He's like, that's the kind of
That's
out of the
funny.
box ingenuity that the real beef of Chicagoland needs. We need to sell cocaine out of the back of the freaking the restaurant, but
Yeah.
it's like, it's crazy how in that situation when the power went out, they're like, we're gonna need this much to fix it. They're like, how are we gonna get that money in time? And they kind of, after
They petty
Carmi had
chill.
already chewed, Richie out about selling coke, now he's coming back and crawling back to him and being, hey man, we need you to get some money for us,
I guess you're
which I
right.
thought was
Yeah.
that was the whole conundrum of that episode,
Yeah. It's just that not morality, but he just wanted to hold that image of like the beef as being like a well established place, and not just like, oh, you could actually get coke from like in the back of it. But then it turns out
Yeah.
like, yeah, that thing that what do you call it, that that little business in the back, yeah, that's actually gonna help you in the front or overall on your restaurant. So it's like kind of funny to see that. Again, it is definitely a conundrum in itself.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really crazy because, I love the flashback sequences and I love, the scenes also with the brother-in-law because you see kind of the respect that he has for Carmi, even though he might seem like the nerd dude or whatever,
Yeah.
he actually knows a lot about Carmi and ends up defending him at the party when people say like, "How does it feel to be a fucking loser?" You know? And then he basically said, actually, he's like a really well-renowned chef, and he's like, cooked at like some of the top restaurants and stuff
Yeah,
like
he's
that, kind of
just
defending him.
yeah, he's just fell from grace. That's what it is. And it's just it wasn't his fault. It's just the industry's a fucking bitch. Like if you're in a big competitive industry, it's just like it's a
Yeah.
bitch, you know?
And
And
then,
it's
I mean, the sister gets pulled
stuff
into
like
it
that.
too, Natalie.
Sugar.
Yeah, she ends up basically getting pulled into it because, um, that's her parents' place, so that automatically falls on her,
Yeah. Yeah.
So the IRS is coming after him. They're having a big old thing, but finally at the end, he's ready to accept the fate of the beef, which is
Yeah.
its transition into the bear.
Yeah. Oh, that's what I was thinking about when I lost my thought. It was that parallel between like business and personal, which
Yeah.
again, like it is when it comes to the sister, it is personal and it also is business on the side of like, the IRS and all that. Uh just and it's also personal because like she's she's wanting to reach out to like Carmi, but Carmi's just like all over the place and he's just like, I don't want to deal with sugar right now. But we later learn that yeah, he goes to like the AA meetings and he's actually trying to make a difference. And then she kind of sees like, oh, really? You went to an AA meeting? And
Like he's trying.
yeah, and then you kind of see he is trying, even though it kind of doesn't seem like he is. It's just a lot on his plate, and she kind of doesn't see that. Um, but also like in those AA meetings, like in the beginning of like the second episode, I believe. There's that big dialogue that's made by one of the attendees, or I don't know what to call him, which is played by Molly Ringwald. And
Yeah.
I seen her credit, and I was just like, oh shoot, that was her. I was like, oh,
She's
but
probably going to be in the next season too,
that could just be a one-time
as an
thing.
AA
Yeah,
person,
an AA person. I don't
Who
know.
knows?
Who knows? She's
We'll
in
see.
Riverdale, so yeah, she's in Riverdale, and she kind of appears here and there. So it's like, oh, Molly Ringwald. Don't expect her to stick around much. She just comes and goes as she pleases.
Basically.
Yeah.
What else, man? There's a lot of good stuff, but I mean, obviously the food. Let's talk about the food for a little
go
bit,
for the
because,
food.
dude, some of those dishes look freaking bomb. I mean, I want to learn to make that cola braised beef that they talk about on having in the menu, and like she ends up actually like Sydney ends up serving it, and the dude left a review about it, and Carmi's reaction was actually negative, towards that, because he's told Sydney it wasn't ready, So I mean,
Yeah.
maybe it's that stubbornness of the 5-star, even though people like it, it's like
Yeah,
that
it could be
assholeness
yeah,
of
it's that mentality of it could always be better. Don't always stick to like where it is. It could always be
yeah.
better. It could be the best if you
And
just wait
it's
it
just
out.
crazy because I feel like there's an inner battle of him trying to find a balance between his traditional culinary French, his French culinary,
Yeah.
being an asshole to the chef, like really nose to the grindstone type of mentality versus, when he walked into the place, it was more like
Yeah.
a neighborhood place, like a place where people know about your dog's surgery, like Richie does.
Yeah.
When that customer comes, hey, how's your dog doing? Does he still have that cone thing around? Like where the people actually know your name and know what your favorite is. You just show your face there, they know what you want.
Cheers.
And it's like finding that balance between high quality cuisine and neighborhood takeout.
I definitely see that because he does have that mentality that he still wants to be the best because it's so instilled in him, and him having to reach out to be the best at what he wants to do was pushed to an extent in a really bad way by that one chef that they keep having that flashback of him having to like, oh,
That chef was a
that chef
dick.
just talking down to him. It's like you're never gonna be the best. And I think like like they said, like, um, when you're
Well, he
sort of
tells him
like
at one
when you're
point
sort
like
of
you should just die.
yeah, when you're
Like
sort of like
what the
no, it's sort of like it's definitely abuse, and then when you're an abuse victim, the one thing you could cope with is abuse other people as well. So it's sort of like him not having to fully extend to like how that chef did it, but you could kind of see him pushing other people in that sense, and it's kind of hard for him
well
to like go into
when he
like
throws
being
Marcus's
passionate about
cake.
that shit. Yeah, well, I mean, that was sort of out of anger, out of like that frustration, and then he ate it and he realizes like this is actually pretty good.
Well, I think like I mean the reason he threw the cake that was some top chef shit. Like when he
Yeah.
went and threw the cake, like that was like some chef like master chef tantrum shit, you know?
Yeah.
And I feel like he realized what he did and was like, dude, it wasn't okay. Like, and there was a moment I feel when he confronts Marcus and he's like, all right, like, cool, you're here. And then he walks away. And then I feel like he thought to himself, this is a moment where I could make a change in the workplace and not be a hostile asshole like the one that I had to deal with, and like went back to Marcus and said, hey, my actions weren't okay. He also did the same with Sydney and told her, hey, it wasn't okay what I did, and then she agrees with them, just like Marcus did.
Yeah.
But it was him acknowledging that and saying that is really making the change I feel in the workplace.
Yeah,
And
he's being a better person about it. Yeah.
and it isn't until he leaves, like until after he apologizes, that he finds the money. So I feel like that was like kind of like his test before, really getting to the treasure of what the beef actually held.
Yeah, he learned something out of it and he got rewarded for it. Like it was an art.
And I mean, not
Yeah.
only that, but the team itself was a reward because he's able to actually
Yeah.
train them and he wants to bring out the best of them.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But I definitely see that difference between that. Like he definitely wants to do the best, but he's not gonna be abusive about it. And he actually like, went past that level and he realizes that wasn't okay. It's sort of like how I don't want to go deep into it, but just like how parents were, or generations trauma in that sense, where you know your dad was a hard ass, so that hard assness goes over to you, and then you have to deal with all this shit that you dealt with the kid, but you're thinking about your kids and you want to be the better person. You're saying like, I'm not gonna scream at my kids just like my dad did in that
Yeah,
sense.
exactly. That kind of thing.
Yeah, and then that shit was sort of like that parent that yelled at him, but Carmi is being like the better person. He's still learning.
He's
He's not
stopping.
perfect.
He's
but
stopping. He's breaking the chain. Show
yeah,
him.
he's trying to break the chain. He's trying to break that cycle of abuse, and
Show him
having
the
to be
tattoo.
being the better. I guess. Yeah. Wait.
Break the
Yeah.
chain.
Break the chain. A man chooses. A man chooses.
You
He
have to
doesn't
put it in
become a
front of your
slave.
shirt.
Ugh. Yep. Look retarded.
Oh god,
I
that's
look like a
stupid.
little T-Rex with the little hands,
T-Rex
the big
guy.
old head.
If you're watching this on Spotify, you know what we're talking about. This is also a video on Spotify, by the way. If you follow us on there, but yeah, dude, really cool. I mean, what's another important? Well, I want to say an important place. I mean, we kind of went off the food tangent, but this whole thing's about food. They get really epic shots on the food,
Yeah,
like
they do.
close-ups and everything like that. But I mean, not only do they get epic shots about the food, like they get epic conversations and discussions between the chefs themselves. I feel like behind the restaurant is one of the most important places because it's kind of like away from the kitchen, away from the customers, and it's like
It's behind the scenes, really.
it's behind the scenes, and it's like a place almost of penance, or like a place of like where they could really just let their emotions out. Like you see Sydney have a conversation with Carmi there, you see Carmi have a conversation with Marcus there, and also Richie, and also Sugar. Like everybody has kind of their conversations in the also Marcus and Sydney have conversations back there. So you kind of just see how that place kind of holds a sacred place. It's a sacred place for people in the culinary field.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. I mean, I see it as more of like uh a common workplace, really, because I definitely see like like you could relate to this because it's like, you have all your coworkers and you're talking about like different stuff and having to relate to that. But not only in the workplace are they even talking, but outside of it too. Because right after like Cindy walks out, um I keep forgetting his name. I'm sorry. He actually like goes over to her place, and then they have like a real ass
Marcus,
conversation. Marcus, and that conversation is pretty funny because they're obviously talking about Carmi, and then like, yeah, he's a little bitch ass,
you little
you
bitch.
little bitch ass motherfucker.
He's like, that's exactly what he did. He threw it like a
He
little
threw a
bitch.
bitch. And it's funny because they're friends. They're friends outside the workplace, so they got something they're relating to, and you kind of do see that in the workplace as well. So it's like it's cool. It's relatable. It's something that's like a slice of life, if you will.
Yeah. And I mean, in both Sydney and Marcus, you see that underlying passion for what they do outside of the workplace. You see
Hmm.
Sydney working on recipes and
And she's
stuff
cooking for
outside
him.
of the beef
Yeah,
when she's at home. And you see Marcus almost literally sleep at the kitchen because he wants to perfect his pastries and stuff like that. And it's like those
yeah,
small little things people don't think about, but people do put time into their work in those aspects. And I'm glad they're showing it. I'm glad they're showing it because it makes you feel like when you ask for something at a restaurant, like, and you say, "Oh, send this back" or whatever, you better fucking have a good reason. You know
yeah,
what I'm saying? Because a lot of work goes into it. You know?
yeah. It does. I would say that one. I think it was the review episode. Uh, I could be wrong. Where they were actually getting the the letter grade, and it turns
Oh
out to
yeah,
a
the
C,
C.
and they got it to a C. But honestly, like it doesn't even matter if it's an A. The best places are always a B, in my opinion. Just gotta say. I don't know why that
Uh,
is.
I think it was crazy because that whole episode, he tried to pin it on Richie. Like he was like
Yeah,
fucking Richie, and Richie thought it was himself too. But at the end of it, it ended up being Carmi was the one that left the cigarettes on the
yeah,
stove, and it was like he didn't tell anybody that it was him. He just kind of just like swept it under the rug
yeah.
and was like,
It's something that I can relate to because I sometimes like I do have my faults, but I also like it's kind of hard to like admit that you made a mistake. It's just me personally, but when I kind of do it, it just comes off a little weird. I'm just like, yeah, I fucked up. Yeah, whatever. You know, and it's sometimes it's hard for someone to do that mistake, and also like I think it also has to do due to like the stress that he was going under, because when you're like under that amount of stress, like you do have that sense of memory where it's just kind of skewed, but you don't realize that until like you're kind of breathing. You kind of like calm down a little bit. Sorry, I don't know why this
"Good."
happens. Hold on, I'll get back to it.
So while we're on this short intermission, people, this is Golden Craftcast. You can find us on Golden Craftcast on IG. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Music, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio. Yeah, we're almost on everything now. And now that we're doing videos, I think we're gonna start uploading these to YouTube too, so you can also watch them on there.
Sorry.
Yeah, check us out. Facebook as well.
Yeah. So check us
Give us.
out. That was a little hiccup. I don't know why that still happens. Um. So yeah, it's just kind of hard to admit those faults, really. So I mean, I think after that, I think he just came to be a bigger man about it, and he
Yeah.
comes into terms like, yeah, he did apologize to Sydney and say like, oh, like that shit wasn't okay, this and that, you know?
Also, there was a conversation that he had with Marcus where he said, like, he's like, don't worry, man. He's like, when he talks, he's like, dude, I fucked up. Like, I turned on the blender at too high of a speed, and it ended up, blowing the fuse.
Yeah,
And he's like, dude, he's like, don't worry. Like, that's the thing about working in the kitchen. One minute everything could be fine. The next minute it's shit hits the fan. He's like after I won the culinary, what was it, the food and wine fest, or what was
The
it?
best food and wine.
Yeah, something like that. He
Yeah.
won like the best chef or whatever.
Yeah.
Uh, he ended up starting a fire in the kitchen. So I mean that goes to show for his character.
Yeah.
But he says something interesting about the fire that you actually experience later on in the series when a fire actually starts in the kitchen. You remember what he said?
Um,
Well, he says to
it
Marcus
has.
this, which I
Go
thought was
ahead.
really interesting. He
Yeah.
says, in that moment when I saw the flames, I realized like if I just let this burn,
Yeah. If I let this
all
burn,
my stress will
everything
be
will just go
gone.
away. Yeah. Which is an interesting line because it's there's this thing in screenwriting where it tells you like, okay, well, your character has to have like motivation, and his motivation is that one goal. But to see that that character could just like, okay, so if he doesn't have that motivation, then everything will be gone. There will be no story. There will be nothing. And then him having to have that thought of like, if he gives up, there's no story or there's no plot. I mean, it could be more, but it's an interesting aspect to see that negative connotation or that a pessimistic view on that shit. So it's like, oh, that's kind of interesting like how he says it because everything will literally be gone, and then the
Well, I
easiest
mean,
thing to the easiest thing
it
to
kind of,
like
go ahead.
the easiest thing to like not overcome it, and mostly the most cowardly is not to go through that obstacle at all. So it's just like,
I mean,
you
but
know,
that rings true kind of to Michael's situation. And,
yeah,
he had the challenge of, running this restaurant and stuff like that and ended up going through an addiction and he ended up letting the fire burn in a
yeah,
context.
yeah. So in that sense, it's sort of again like talking about obstacles. The way that I visualize it is just like this whole long road where pretty much you have to go through all the hardship and everything and hurdles and whatnot. So at some point, Michael gave up in a couple. He did a couple hurdles and then he gave up halfway. But you could kind of see Carmi having to go into the same cycle, but also getting a little bit more hurt, further on the curve with having those same thoughts that Michael probably thought about as well. So it's like the same path, but it's just a different experience in that sense.
Exactly, exactly. And I mean, it's kind of like in their DNA, but I mean, obviously you want to see Carmi fight for what he has, and
Yeah,
I
you're
feel
rooting
like
for that character.
him getting that chunk of money and getting like after he's accepted kind of like basically accepted his loss because they didn't have any more money for beef or whatever, and then he just used the last of the money to get Richie out of jail and do his bail. So, you know, it just goes to show it's like once you have like nothing left, what do you have to lose?
Mhm.
And he hits the lotto.
Yeah.
Minus one can. I know everyone talks about that one can that was underneath. Who knows what's gonna happen with that one can? But it was there.
Yeah, maybe I'll come up in like the final season and save their ass at the last minute. I don't know. Who
I
knows?
mean, one of the foods going back to the foods that I liked that I want to do is the salt bed potatoes. Like I did a bunch of research because at one point Sydney said, "Oh yeah, next time do those potatoes in a bed of salt." And I was
Yeah.
like, "What? Like, why would you do that?" And then I read up on it, and apparently, like, it makes the outside of the potato really crispy and crunchy, but it makes the inside super super soft.
Yeah.
So, and it makes it flavorful because of the salt. So I want to try that one day. You need a Dutch oven to do it, so I need to find a Dutch oven
Yeah. There's
and
yeah.
bed of
There's
salt.
there's this one dish that stands out for me. I think it was just for like purpose of the narrative, where he talks to Marcus about like this one dish that it takes a while and a lot of process uh,
But the gelatin,
to make it perfect. And I feel like that was just like a metaphor of like never having to be perfect at all. Like it's never like you're never gonna make it.
perfection, you're never gonna reach
You're never
perfection.
gonna reach perfection. And he's just giving him like I think like unintentionally he's giving him a lecture on like yeah don't ever reach for perfection. Just do the best that you can out of it.
Yeah.
Because he just like gives him like, oh, like he's explaining him the process of it, and I think he's kind of taking away like, okay, well, it's pretty hard. So I mean, I think the best thing to do is just do the best, and then eventually you'll get better at it. Really, which I
Yeah.
think that was his whole arc for Marcus. It's just like, okay, I could be perfect, but also just don't forget to be grounded. You know,
Yeah.
help out people.
Oh man, I think we covered basically all of the major scenes, man.
Yeah,
What do you
I
think?
think we got a lot of things out of it, context and just like the whole purpose of the whole show. Really, I
Yeah.
wasn't expecting that. I was just like, oh, okay, I'm going along for the ride.
There's a lot of good stuff in this
Yeah,
show. I think they're gonna do a really good season 2. The writing's phenomenal. Maddie Madison's a freaking treasure. And I actually have an article here that I want to read from IndieWire.com. It says here, The Bear creator reveals how all that redacted got in those redacted and what Carmi will use it for in season 2. All those
and
tomato cans, I'm pretty Okay, it says IndieWire grilled The Bear creator Christopher Storer with our burning questions after season 1 finale. We got some surprisingly candid answers. Here goes. According to its 100% certified fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes, The Bear is a flawless show. We know, it's flawed and subjectively interpreted thumbs up, thumbs down system. Still, IndieWire had a few clarification questions for creator and co-showrunner and director Christopher Storer. We caught up with the busy Rami alum via email and received some surprisingly, for this business, satisfyingly answers to our burning questions. Get out your gloves ready. Previously, IndieWire spoke with series star Jeremy Allen White, Shameless, Carmi, about the absolute panic attack that is the one-shot episode 7. Oh yeah, there's a giant one-shot in the episode 7. It's all one shot, remember?
it's the second to last episode when she
Yeah,
walked out of the restaurant. That was the one take.
that
Just
one shot episode 7, as well as his
yeah,
favorite real Chicago sandwich shop. During our 20 plus minute phone conversation, White talked a bit about the huge season finale 1 reveal that Michael, John Bernthal, stashed wads of shrink wrapped cash in 10-ounce tomato cans Carmi initially refused to open for the Stapp's family spaghetti meal. Alright, check this out. When Carmi finally gets what essentially amounts to Michael's suicide note from cousin Richie, he finds all the money and his future. Together, we all then realize Carmine tossed the White estimated at about $5,000 in the final season of episode 1 in the form of a half-open can. Carmi didn't find the money until he was ready to find the money, White told us, calling the setup and payoff literal in this case, a nuanced and beautiful moment. Storer, the guy who created this moment, along with co-showrunner Joanna Callow, echoed the sentiment in our exchange. Without further amuse-bouches, I don't know what that word is. Read our Q&A below. We hope it also amuses. Here we go. Okay, so this is question answer format. So the question is, the cash in the tomato cans was Uncle Jimmy's, Oliver Platt, $300,000 loan. Yes, minus the one can Carmi tossed in the pilot. Yes. We wanted to reveal that even though Michael was an addict, he was telling the truth when he told Uncle Jimmy he wanted to franchise, which in this case meant opening a restaurant with Carmi. Michael thought he could break the familial cycle and start something fresh and not at fucked, which may have been his way of processing his own disease, his own addiction, which he unfortunately didn't get to see into fruition. I also think it was very beneficial at the time for Jimmy to have a way to clean some money, which makes sense, right? Because he's doing some shady shit. Okay. How did the cash get in the sealed cans? And then this is what the guy said. He said, there's a semi-automatic electric can seamer at the restaurant, which is a quick process and very easy to use. Michael was most likely instructed to not put the money in the bank for myriad tax reasons. In this scattered state, the processing of the tomato cans really felt like he was starting to build something, felt more like a real plan of action to him. A safe, too obvious. I know it sounds completely absurd, but in researching various kitchens, I was really shocked how many stories and articles I had come across or heard about where money or drugs were found in sealed aluminum cans.
Getting hooked.
Aluminum tomato
Getting
cans
close.
on
Yeah.
top of that. I guess the police dogs can't smell anything over the acidic tomatoes, and I definitely think Michael had heard some version of that somewhere.
Hmm.
Trying to understand. Okay, this is now IndieWire. Trying to understand the windfall here. If the $300,000 minus the one can, but Jimmy's holding Carmi's to Michael's alone, minus the credit from the 2 season 1 parties, right? Because he took some credit off. How is Carmi going to turn the original beef of Chicagoland into the bear? There are also the IRS and vendor issues. Is this more than $300,000, or is the idea here that they'll just keep the debts and use the money as seed money for the bear, which will hopefully pay off the debts? Okay, this is what the writer says. This is the question we wanted to end with and hopefully get to explore in the second season, which got approved. Fuck yeah. Harmy gets some closure with his brother, but then how does he handle this is going forward? How does he handle this going forward? How can he build something new and start from a more positive place? There's something beautiful in the idea that Carmi could have found this right off the bat if he would have made the spaghetti in the pilot. But then maybe he would have burnt out similarly the way Michael did, which is something you brought up. I think by not discovering this immediately, he really learned the difficult lesson that not only was he sort of trying to fix this restaurant for all the wrong reasons, that he also couldn't do it himself. He finds in Sydney someone he had a short hand with. They will definitely use this money as a seed, but Jimmy will be in the mix. There we go. The Bear was renewed for a second season on Thursday. Like season 1 currently does, season 2 will exist exclusively on Hulu, baby. So there we go. That's confirming the season 2 and some cool things. This is by Tony Maglio, by the way. That's the name of the dude that wrote that article.
Yeah.
Pretty cool shit, IndieWire. I think they were able to get a response to that.
Pretty cool. So I actually found out that I have the tendency of like reading the credits afterwards and just knowing certain things, and that's how I know like, okay, well, this person works for this show but also that show. But um also like there's actually the producer from one of the for this show is actually a producer for Atlanta.
Oh,
So there's straight up connection of like
the
um the
urban-esque.
Hulu FX family had me to like knowing which parts it should be attached to.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously I think when it comes to like FX, I think there's like a whole circle going on with them and having to like, uh decide like, okay, well, I want to work on this, I want to work on that. Like for example, Taika Waititi, he's actually like attached to two things on FX. Like you got um What We Do in the Shadows, and we also got Reservation Dogs, which is attached to. And you kind of see like why he's attached. I mean, obviously one of them is like a movie that he made, and then now it's a TV series, and then another one's like, okay, well, he knows what it's like to be an addition an indigenous person of color, as even if it's not his own. So he got attached to Reservation Dogs and all that. So I'm kind of seeing the difference of like what this network TV is doing, especially like in this recent like in this era of like TV, which everyone's calling like the golden era of TV now, and you get to see like a lot of interesting names having to pop off here and there, and it's no wonder that when they're making something on their own, it's kind of like pretty cool. It's kind of like, oh, like you could see he's smart, he's a genius, there's something talent, there's a lot of talent behind that and stuff. So um, I really like that. And also, the second thing, I'm not gonna lie, when I watched the first episode, I thought this was like from freaking I thought this was directed by the same people that made like Uncut Gems and Good Times, which is
Mhm.
directed by the Shafty brothers, and it kind of I got that vibe like right away because they're also like very like momentous and very chaotic in their movements with the camera, and it's also very like much like inspired by Scorsese himself, and and just like the way that this camera was like moving and the way that it was like emphasizing like what it's like to be like in the chef's like kitchen and having to like go against the time that's given to them is kind of cool, and then just like it's very stylized in that sense. And then I got to see is like, oh well, this is the guy I never even heard of.
Mhm.
So I was just like looking. I want to look more into this guy. I don't know that much about him, but it kind of seems like I'm gonna just say as much as that he definitely is like uh a guy that wanted to make film passionately, and then he has this big idea about chefs and stuff, and then he came into this and made it into a TV series. And sorry, and I mean TV series in itself, they're pretty much like short films itself, you know. So it's pretty cool to actually see like what seems to be like a passion project more, and we got to see like, oh, this is the extension of it. So I definitely see like the passion within the stylized um realm of like the making of this show, and also just like how well crafted this was like in writing and also developing and all this stuff. So.
I mean, I think it's also a challenge to bring in, the cinematography of food and the culture of food into this and do it in a way that respects not only people in a culinary field, but respects a lot of different cultures and kind of the culture clash that happens in the kitchen and in the real world. It kind of pays ode and homage to that because that's a real situation, man. You have people from all different kinds of cooking backgrounds, what food they've eaten, and all kinds of different culinary standards, and um, it kind of just shows those people mesh all in one place, and
Yeah.
it's really dope to see as someone that loves to eat, food. That's
Yeah.
me.
Yeah,
So I
all the
mean, I think
foodies and
this is
stuff.
really dope, and I feel like for a lot of culinary people, it's going to give a lot of culinary people some respect and skin in the game after people start watching a show like this because it's real.
Yeah.
I mean, you see like their hair is sweaty,
Yeah.
they're in there for a long time. You could see, just the real shit that goes
Yeah.
on
It's
behind the scenes in Chicago.
yeah,
And
it's
also the gentrification, just like the environment of business that they're in and the competitiveness.
mhm.
So I mean, I'm really interested to see season 2 and just follow this along very closely. This is probably one of my favorite new shows. I mean, we've been going back to back this whole summer. I feel on streaming shows because there's a lot of good shit out
Yeah,
right
there's
now.
a
I
lot of
mean,
stuff.
I just finished Peaky Blinders last week, and this show kind of came out of nowhere. But as soon as I saw it, I was like, Serge, we got to talk about this. This is one of my favorites, and I can't wait to see more. You know.
Yeah, it's definitely bling, bleeding more into like not just a TV series, but like I said in the beginning, like culinary arts, which itself it's a craft. So it's like sort of it's always cool to see like what's really going on in that world and portrayed in film, because in film like sometimes they kind of like miss the mark, and especially like um if they try to make like something about like a certain like feel, and then a lot of people like criticize it because like, oh, you didn't get it right. You're just doing this movie just to make this movie. But it just feels like there's also not just a passion for like filmmaking, but also a passion of like the culinary arts and how the restaurant industry really is. And it kind of seems like from what you read on the forums, like it's pretty relatable, and people are like reacting positively on that,
Yeah,
which
I
it's
mean,
important.
it was
Yeah,
kind of a culture shock to me when they were like repeating, when it kind of showed them in the 5-star environment, and then it was like reading out the orders, and everyone was like, "Yeah, chef, yeah, chef." I was like, "Whoa, it's like really like that? That's fucking crazy."
yeah.
That was
It's
impressing to me.
yeah.
It's like,
I always like movies or like TV series that do that. Um, the one that's coming up to mind is like Whiplash, which is about like
the drummer,
the
right?
school. The one with the drummer, where he goes to like music school. And it's funny because like before I even saw that movie, I had a friend that went to school for music, and he told me like people really are like that. Like they will just push you and shit. And just you really gotta know your craft. If you're off one beat, even by like a millisecond, you'll have to start over. Oh shit, you have to start over and just do all that
It's
shit.
like we
Sorry. I'm
almost
like,
did right
yeah,
now.
I'm just like passionate about it right now. So just like, like I kind of get that. And then I was like, fuck, like you're making a movie that's like based on an experience, which that movie is based on the director's experience on having to be in that environment and just, having to tell that story. Just to not just like reveal that whole world, but also reveal that the experience that he had. So it's like, yeah, it's pretty cool that like that's that's what a film or TV series is like, capable of like revealing that
Yeah.
sort of things.
Did you have an article on the bear you wanted to read? Do you
It's
have something?
actually it was mostly everything that I just said on in the beginning, how they were
And there
on
you
set
go.
and said that they call each other chef, and they even
Yeah.
said like, yeah, it wasn't like just like something that was like method, it was just fun.
Yeah,
That's
it was
what
fun to do.
Jeremy Allen White said. It was just like, oh, it's just something fun to do. Like it's like right
He
there.
also said his favorite sandwich shop was Portillo's,
Yeah. Oh, they even
which
said
I
that.
think a lot of
Yeah,
people will shit on.
yeah. They also said that that the food that was really made, some of the cast members actually ate it, and then
Oh
when they
yeah.
set it down, like, and then the following shot, they kind of had like continuity error because they have already took a bite of the fucking sandwich or whatever was on site. It was just like, oh, it's a good thing we kind of
Maddie
cut that out.
Madison is
Yeah,
along from being the producer, he's actually the food advisor
that's what I
on the
said too.
show. So he's the one that's like taking care of all the like showing these fools like how to actually cook and stuff like that, or like how to make it look as if they are cooking, which is pretty dope.
Yeah.
I mean, final thoughts? We got some final thoughts on here?
Um, I feel like I kind of said it, but I think I just need to accumulate that and just make it to one whole thing.
Yeah.
This is something that again is just revealing a craft or a role or an industry that's just like um you don't really think about. You don't really think about it, but it's there. It's competitive. Um it's something real, but there's also like something deep and emotional about it. Like again, we were talking about like generational trauma, which is almost like that too, because things are competitive, things are hard,
Yeah.
and when you're trying to reach for greatness, sometimes it's not all that great in the process of you know reaching that goal or reaching to be the best. And it isn't until like you hit rock bottom that you actually learn some revelation that it doesn't really have to be like this. But also like there's also a story about like a family drama as well that that deals with like mental illness or mental health. And that's also very much important because like you can only push the human mind so far that you become a completely different person, or you become not a person at all, which means death.
Yeah.
And it's just important to show a little bit compassion and just you know um that sense of empathy in that sense, because you don't want to lose yourself. And I hope this show keeps that soul and keeps that message, keeps that theme, and I hope it doesn't
Yeah.
lose itself along the seasons. I hope it's just I'm rooting for this to be a good series, really. So
Yeah,
that's my
definitely.
final word on that.
I want to say, I mean, aside from it being a dope culinary show, like this is a drama show, but it mixes in a lot of things that, at first seem impossible to combine. A culinary show and a drama. You never really see those two kind of mixed together. I think the only time we've seen like a real kind of, and that wasn't even real, it was kind of just like comical, was Waiting. That we actually see like kind of like a real approach behind the scenes in the kitchen. I can't really think of other shows that really show like a
Like
behind the
reality
scenes in the
TVs,
kitchen
like
kind of
Master
vibe.
Chef and all that. No,
Yeah, like that,
yeah.
So I mean, like this is cool that it's mixing in some real aesthetics from the culinary field while making it entertaining, making it about drama. Also mixing in some facts and well, not some facts, but storytelling having to do with mental illness. You're also bringing that fact in there, and you're also bringing in facts of like poverty, like we see from Sydney. Like she's in major debt, her credit is in the shitter because she chose to live the American dream, and it's almost like that conflict of, is the dream even worth dreaming? And it's like, if you're surrounded by the right people, yes, and it's like they have to, in their own sense, be their own cheerleaders and support each other like soldiers would, kind of like in a brigade, and kind of march along and keep this idea moving together as a group. And it can't just be Carmi, it can't just be Sydney, it can't just be, it can't just be any of them by themselves doing this. It has to be them as a group. And I can't wait to actually get some new characters involved, because I feel like they have already made a great nesting place for all these characters to be. So, anybody can be around the corner, I feel, in this kind of suburb or urban area of Chicago. And kind of, you got the whole gangster vibe too in there. So I feel like they're going to have fun with that in the next season as well. Um, I mean, it's just a real show to me. It looks a little more real than a lot of the other cooking shows that are out there, and it's like it's nice to the eye. You got some drama in there. You got some great acting in there, great storytelling. You have things coming back in a circle. It's a circle, not a square, a circle.
Yeah.
It's all coming back around. So let's see what happens. I want to see what they end up cooking at the Bear. And yeah, man, that's my final thoughts on this. All right.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Wait, last
You want to do
question.
some sip on this?
Wait, last question.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, there's this whole like dream sequence where he's like tackling the bear. What do you think the
Yeah.
bear symbolizes?
I feel like the bear obviously was, I think it was a symbolism for the challenge of turning the beef into the bear. Like the bear was out of the cage, right?
Yeah, like he actually
So
let it out of the
he was the one that let it out of the cage. Like he, like almost like as if the bear was like his idea that he had let out of the cage, and now it's his time to tame the bear and to make it what it can be, to tame the staff as to be the bear,
Yeah.
to train the bear.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
What about you?
I just see is that version of himself, the chef version, which is the
Mhm.
bear. I think that's where he got his nickname.
Mm.
Which is he's releasing that onto the world, but also it's also the emotional burden, all the whether it has to deal with Michael or it has to deal with like what he dealt with in the 5-star restaurant, just
Mhm.
coming out and then having to like deal with it.
Tame the bear.
Yeah, simply I think that's what it was. I don't know about
Yeah.
taming it. I think that was just a challenge to even try to tame it. But I think just lending it out was just like the first step.
Let me
think
ask you
that's
another
what-
question before we end this.
No, follow up question.
What do you feel is going to happen in season 2? Let's do some predictions.
I don't know, man. Um, it could do something with like that can he didn't pick up, or was just not acknowledged.
I feel like that might be part of the drama.
Yeah, that might
Um,
be, but they might turn it around and do something completely different. I hope that's what it is, because like when it comes to like writing, like you don't want to be predictable, and then when you present something new and something like, oh, I didn't even think about that. It's like a left turn completely. I Those surprises are always like the best. So I hope
this
like
is the way.
this is something
I
that's gonna
mean, yeah, I think there's
yeah,
gonna be a surprise with that can, but I mean, if they end up completely tearing that place down and restoring it, like they're gonna have to clean up that can at some point,
yeah.
you know. But I feel like in this next season, we're gonna see maybe like a female counterpart of Richie, like someone that might actually connect with Richie and give him kind of like hope, because he just got out of jail. So I feel like he's gonna be on an upwards trajectory. But I feel like it's always gonna be a rocky road with that
Yeah.
character.
Oh,
Um,
one of the things I didn't notice is that Carmi doesn't have a love interest, and he even points that out. Like, oh, I was never good with girls, this and that. So
yeah,
I don't know, maybe some
he's
love
just all about
interest.
his work or
Yeah,
something.
maybe some love interest that might like distract him, or having to challenge his like ways, and then
Yeah.
having to come to terms like, no, I have to stick to this no matter what, or some shit. So
What else?
that's the
I
only
feel
thing.
like Marcus is gonna come out with the killer dessert that they're gonna end up putting on the menu.
I think it's gonna get too big. He
Um,
gets out of the restaurant and he
I
just changes
think
the whole
him and
movie.
Sydney might start growing a thing,
Yeah,
and then like having a thing, and then that might interrupt the workplace
yeah.
somehow.
Either the
Who
workplace
knows?
or his own craft. So,
Yeah, yeah, one of those two, something like
so it
that. Those
might,
are my
it might,
predictions.
it might interrupt certain people's like journeys in that sense, and then kind of like challenging them in that sense.
Yeah,
I think
yep,
challenging their passes might be like the best way to go about it. I don't know. Who knows? That's just
yeah.
speculation.
It's all speculation, baby.
Yeah, yeah,
All
yeah.
right, let's do a sip on this.
Sip on this. We know better for that. Manny, go ahead.
Well, people, ladies and gentlemen, I finally saw it. I saw the movie Nope
It
today.
barely came out.
It just came out and I had to watch it. I was so excited about it. Dude, one of my favorite having to do with
Don't say too much.
extraterrestrial
Yeah.
movies ever. Hands down. I'm still mulling it over in my head cuz it was just a trip. Jordan Peele did a great job with this. One thing that caught my eye in the credits, there's only about 2 to 10 visual effects people in the whole movie. I was like, dude, hell yeah. Like he's getting it down. He's trying to do something for everybody. You see some dope franchises that he's trying to, I feel, give some money to in his show, but definitely Hollywood movie surrounding the culture of Hollywood and movie making and stuff like that. If you get a chance, go out and watch it in theaters. Really dope. I feel the sound has a lot to do with the movie. You want to watch it with a good sound system, and just I feel like I might go watch it again. Honestly, like that's how good it was. It was really dope, unexpected. My sip on this is actually the fact that I stayed to the end credits and they announced that they're actually going to do an addition to the Universal Studios California tour. Like if you go to Universal Studios in California, Hollywood, whatever, you could actually go to Nope, see the Nope Ranch. They have an addition to it. And you can actually go and see like part of the set and stuff like that. I don't know if it's actually like a crazy thing that happens. Who knows? But yeah, that's gonna that's a thing now at Universal Studios Hollywood.
That's cool.
I'm gonna go check it out.
Yeah. So, uh, there's this show I'm excited about. I just watched the trailer for it, and it's created by Chris Estrada, which is a comedian, a Hispanic comedian, and he always has like this famous like, I they even say it in the show for the trailer. and it says like the life expectancy for like a dude out in the hood, or like a gangster, is 24 years old. A life expectancy for a bitch ass fool like me is 72 years old. And it's basically a whole show about like living out in the hood, between being like, like um a bitch ass fool and a thug, and him having to deal with like an ex convict or whatnot. It looks, that's what it seems. And it looks like it's a really funny like um comedy about like that difference in that culture, like in living in like the hood. Like it looks like it's gonna be like East LA commerce and whatnot. But I'm excited for it because, I mean, how many like movies or TV shows have you seen? Like it's like about like dudes out there, like Latinos, like just trying to survive the fucking hood out there. I mean, you see like a lot of like black voices and talking about that, and I watched a lot of that, like Snowfall. Like I'm starting to watch the new season of Snowfall, but now I get to see someone like that's my culture, and having to see
Mm.
that, and it's like kind of funny to see like, oh, like like him having to um live out like that hard time. And the show is called I think it's called This Fool. It's literally called This Fool, but honestly, I think it should be called This Fool. And
I think that's what they were going for.
yeah, but I think
Yes,
like just to
fool.
make it easy for like the executives to understand is like, oh, fool meaning fool. But honestly, like, if you grew up, here, it's like, oh, it's this fool, you know,
This
this
fool.
fool.
That's
And it
funny.
looks
I
it
gotta
looks like
check
it's gonna
that
be
out.
funny. It's gonna be like on Hulu in August. I forgot what day, but this is from Chris Estrada. He's a very famous Hispanic comedian. So check him out. Um, the whole premise is about that joke, and it looks like the extension of that joke is gonna be pretty funny, and it's like pretty much a telling of like his lifestyle and his what he grew up with. So it's cool. Definitely check it out. Support the arts and whatnot. So go ahead, watch Nope, watch This Fool. It's all good.
There you go.
Yep.
You know what? Hit the button. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us on another delicious episode of Golden Craft Cast. My beer was alright. What about you?
Mm-hmm. This is a 5%er, so I could just sip on this all the time.
This is a 4.5, but really sour. I think I'm gonna dump the rest out. Honestly, it just didn't do it for me.
Never go for Goose. I just don't like it.
Yeah, don't go for Gose, but
Yeah.
you can catch us on Instagram, like I said, Golden Craft Cast. And then you could also catch us basically wherever you listen to your podcasts, Spotify, Apple Music, Google Podcasts, and iHeartRadio. And we're probably going to upload this one to YouTube, yes?
Yeah.
Did we upload the other ones?
Yeah. So yeah, we gotta upload. We're gonna upload the couple last episodes that we do, including this one, to YouTube. It's a long process, but it's gonna be up there. So check us out.
Oh, yeah, people.
We're on
Check us
video.
out. Love, peace, and chicken grease.
All right.
Cheers to the craft.
Later, people.